customer states, I think I'm getting coolant in my engine oil. I've got a steam haze coming out of the blow-by tube. So let's get into it and see. So I want to just check the oil, engine oil, and it does look a little milky. You can't really tell in the video, but it does appear to have some milk down there toward the bottom of that stick. I think now I want to look at the radiator and see if we might have engine oil in the coolant, see if it's mixing both ways. Well, the radiator cap and the tank don't show any evidence of oil. Not at first glance anyway. All right, I can't really tell how much coolant's in there. I can squeeze that bottom radiator hose. There's some in there, but I don't want to put any more coolant in it and potentially put it back in the engine. So I think I'm going to drain a little bit of the engine oil. This thing's been sitting about a week and a half since the guy called me. This is actually a family machine, so I would not be messing with John Deere. More than likely, if it wasn't, a family or a current customer that's, runs Cat 2. But anyway, neither here nor there. I'm going to drain the oil, see if I've got water in it, and go from there. So if indeed we do have water getting in the engine oil, there's two places it can mix. This right here is the engine oil cooler. I think those two lines are engine oil. But anyway, it is still the oil cooler. It's got a core in there, kind of like a radiator, so to speak. It could be ruptured and be leaking, or it could be a head gasket or cracked head. I hope that's not the case. Allegedly, this thing didn't run, it'd been sitting a few months, hopped in it, and right away noticed they had an issue, so it's not like it run hot or anything. So I'm hoping that it's just set and that core went bad, but we'll see. All right, let's see what we get here. Oh, definitely coolant. I don't know if y'all can see how green that was. Yeah, not good. I'm gonna go ahead and drain that all out. I'm gonna overflow my bucket first though. No need in even cranking it with that mess in there. All right, so here's the plan. We're going to pressurize up the coolant system. I think I'm gonna try to break this loose and let it slide out. And also gonna drain the rest of the oil out of the engine. So what we're gonna do is, if I have the coolant system pressurized, if it leaks out of these two tubes, back in the engine, we'll know, hey, we got an oil cooler bad. If I see it leaking out of the already drained engine, say if it's leaking out of the oil pan, that means we've got either a head gasket, cracked head. I guess it's possible. I don't know if this thing's got liners. I don't know a lot about John Deere engines, but if it's a wet sleeve, it could have a liner seal, corroded or something like that. But it just means that we got deeper engine issues and we'll be snatching the head off. So let's see which way it goes. Well, that's not gonna work. John Deere cap's a little deeper than my kit here. Back to the drawing board. All right, so here's the deal. I can take the air wand, pressurize up the coolant system, and I'm getting coolant out of the oil pan. But I can't get these tubes broke loose like I thought I could a while ago. Apparently they're made onto that cooler. So I'm fixing to go ahead and just snatch the cooler off there and pressure check it by itself. So if I have to come back and reseal it, that's no big deal, just a few gaskets. But, for troubleshooting's sake, we need to know if that's the problem or not. I'm also hoping that, I don't know if you can see that, what's dripping right there is coolant. Hoping that maybe when I break this loose, I'll be able to see traces of coolant either there or not there. So maybe it'll tell me something. All right, quick little update. We pulled the cooler out. So a while ago, I took the air wand and put pressure to it. Actually, had coolant come out of the oil pan. Well, both those passages don't go straight back to the oil pan. So it wasn't the cooler. Little brother swung by to help me out. Well, he was just kind of there. He didn't come to help me. He just come to hang out and BS. But anyway, and we're not John Deere guys, so we're learning. This is a wet sleeve engine. After doing a little bit of research, we did spin this thing over. It's not hydrolocked, so I don't think we got a cracked head. We don't have coolant getting on top of piston, it doesn't appear. My theory is that a liner is let go, liner seal is let go, and we're dumping coolant through the bottom of the liners. At least one of them anyway. So what we're going to do is reseal this, pull the oil pan down, and figure out a way to pressurize the coolant system. Or no more than just if we got to put the air hose to it again and put some water in it. And, just verify it before we do snatch the head off. Should be pretty straightforward, but that's the plan. All right, so we are back on this thing. We got the cooler kind of stuck back on there with some RTV. I got the oil tubes off of it. So the plan was fill it back up with water and then pressurize the coolant system to see if it was coming from the cooler for sure. Now we got the oil tubes off of it, or if it's coming from like a cylinder head or liner. And just filled it full of water. I ain't even got the pressure tester on it yet. And it's already coming out the oil pan. Now I've had this oil plug out for, I don't know, an hour or two now. And it was done draining, and then as soon as I got done putting coolant in it, I heard it start dripping again. So I think we're fixing to pull the oil pan off there and see where the water's coming from. All right, the pan's off. Now we can pressurize it up and really see where that water's coming from. And yes, I did just get the phone splashed in oil. Apparently there was more oil hiding on the back side of that pan behind that gasket than I thought. Anyway, live and learn. It's no big deal. Actually, I see something dripping. Yeah, let me stick my head in there with the light and see if we can find it. All right, don't know if I can zoom you guys in there, but what we're seeing there is the bottom of the liner, and we've got coolant dripping from between the block and the liner. So I believe these are wet sleeves. That's as far as I can zoom in, and it won't. There it goes. These are wet sleeves, which tells me we've probably got some dried up O-rings in there. So anyway, now we get to pull the cylinder head off and pull the rods and pistons out and then snatch the sleeves out of it. So this is gonna be a pretty big job. All right, so now that we know that the coolant is coming past the liner seal, we've got to strip this thing down. We're gonna pull the head, turbo's gotta come off, the injector line's gotta come off, of course. Hood's gotta come off. Basically, we wanna strip it down, get the pistons and rods out of it, and then try to pull the sleeves out of it. So all this has got to come out of the way. Intake pipe, exhaust. I'm a cat guy, so never actually done one of these John Deere 4440s before. But it's just nuts and bolts. So we're going to tear into it and see what we can get done. Taking the hood off, and that is not what you want to find. Hopefully they're long gone, but who knows. All right, pulling that hood by yourself is doable, but it is not very fun. All right, get you guys up here. Got a ton of dirt dodgers to clean up. All right, so all this mess has got to come out of the way. I'll start with these, some kind of manifold. And you guys will have to forgive me. I'm not even sure what that goes to. I assume the steering, since it goes in there to the cab. We'll get all that pulled out of the way, because eventually we're going to take a crane and pick it straight up on the head, and I don't want to be fighting all that mess. I'm thinking I'm going to leave the turbocharger attached to the cylinder head. If we've got a liner issue, we shouldn't have to pull the turbocharger and the manifold. We'll just play it by ear and see. Oh yeah, the water pump looks like it's actually attached to the block and not to the head, but I think we're going to be fighting for room to miss the cab. So probably going to go ahead and pull that water pump out of the way. I'm hoping the radiator can stay there. It's one of those deals, guys. You don't want to pull a bunch of stuff you don't have to, but you also don't want to create more of a headache by trying to leave some stuff on that should come out of there. Well, I missed my bucket a little bit, but it's mostly water, so we should be all right. All right, I've kind of skipped past the boring part, went ahead and got most everything out of the way, including the water pumps. This broke loose, alternators out of the way, got the intake box out of the way. I think I'm gonna leave all that mess there. I did go ahead and break the water manifold loose, and I broke 2 bolts back there, but luckily they're sticking up above flush. So maybe once I get the head off, they won't be too bad to get out of there. I'm fixing to come back and blow all this off with the air blower. And then we're going to pull the valve cover. Well, back up. I may go ahead and pull these injector lines first. Anyway, all that still got to come off. I lost a ratchet, long handle 3/8 ratchet a while ago, and then I realized that maybe my green and black tools were not the best tools to be using this John Deere, because they sure do blend in really good. So it looks like there are head bolts directly under the return lines and the injectors. So I'm going to go ahead and pull the return line off on here. I know the return lines are going to come off. I think I got to pull the injectors too. Just going to play it by ear and see. All right, if you're like me and this is your first time ever pulling injectors out of a John Deere 4440 engine, you look a little intimidated because that's quite a tight spot for an injector. It's not that big a deal. This fit in here actually pops right off, and pretty simple and straightforward. And then a deep 12.15/16 will get on there and break these injectors loose. I've already got that one loosened up. It just unscrews. So I'm gonna go through, finish breaking the rest of those loose, and as I make that initial turn and get it broke loose, I'll come back with an air blower and blow any trash that's got knocked loose out of there. Just try to keep this thing as clean as I can as I tear it down. I would like to have pressure washed it first, but we're out here in a tractor shed with no water anywhere close to us. So it just is what it is today. All right, so why this is not ideal, it does work. Breaking them free. And then, oh, goodness gracious, I'm getting attacked by a red wasp here. This will work for easing them out of here. Slowly but surely, I can probably put the socket on there now and it won't slip. So we killed quite a few red wasps when we pulled the hood off. And there's like one or two that are coming back to their home, and their home's not there anymore. So they've been kind of dive bombing me. I haven't been stung yet, but I'm kind of waiting on it. Well, I kind of got carried away and got the cylinder head snatched off and didn't get it recorded. But the head is off. So we pulled number 2 piston out of there. Some weird things going on here. So we don't know if this engine's been built or not. The rod bearings, they're not like trashed, but they are definitely worn. If you can see, it's like the first layer of material, or maybe the first 2 layers of material are gone. And then it's down to the 3rd layer. So that bearing's, it's, you know, it's not like it's done for, but it's definitely worn out. And this, so this would have been the upper, this would have been the lower, and this one's completely through. So anyway, time for a set of bearings. However, this piston looks like surprisingly good. Like just one little score mark there, but you can still see the side to side hashes. Anyway, it looks like almost a new piston, newer piston. And I noticed, there you go. It's a Molly piston. And I don't think, you guys may correct me in the comments, I don't think John Deere used Molly pistons for their original equipment. So it looks like at some point somebody put a set of pistons in here. Also, you guys correct me, I don't know if it's the date code, but there's a part number up top and then it's 1079 is stamped on these bearings. Now this tractor is going to be roughly a 79 to 80 model, so that very possibly could be the manufacturer date of those bearings. I don't know that to be fact, could be totally off, but just something to consider. We had kind of started to clean up for the day, but the sleeves are definitely, they're original. They kind of pitted. There's like a wear groove in the top, and the wear groove, like, it doesn't match the newness of that piston. So it almost looks like this thing got a cheap rebuild. They slapped a set of pistons in it, may have run a hole through the sleeves. Definitely didn't put a new set of sleeves in it. So I'm kind of wondering if, when they did all that mess, if they didn't, like, you know, not pull the sleeves and we don't have original O-rings in the bottom of the sleeves. I started knocking this sleeve out. The puller I had wouldn't fit this thing. It looked like it was going to damage the bottom of the sleeve, so I stopped. Got to go back and make a puller, and then we'll try to get the sleeves out of it. We're going to call it a day. It's Saturday. Working on my day off. I say my day off. Working on Saturday. I try not to do that, but so I'm not going to stay out here late messing with this thing. So anyway, we're going to call it good there. I'm going to measure this cylinder so that I can go make a puller, and we'll go from there. All right, so after doing a little research, I found out that those Molly or Mall or Male, whatever you want to call them, those M-A-H-L-E pistons, allegedly are like factory John Deere equipment way back then. So it stands to reason that this thing may have never been into. The piston walls may have just been in really good shape. But anyway, so just wanted to throw a little correction out there. I don't think it had been rebuilt. I think that we had just tore into a original engine from possibly 1980. I'm not real sure, 81, somewhere in there. Well, about had a heart attack. I come over here to set this valve cover down, and somebody put a little rubber snake over here. So I'm gonna change my drawers now. All right, so after we got in there, we saw the bearings, we saw how the liners looked. We made the decision that we wanted to put an in-frame rebuild kit in this thing, which is going to come with new rod bearings, new main bearings, new pistons, new sleeves, new rings, you know, head gasket set, O-ring set, basically everything you need to in-frame rebuild it. But this is a budget deal, so this is a family tractor. It's kind of a weird deal, late passing with someone. Anyway, don't want to get too deep into that, but just know that this tractor, all it does, it stays hooked to that bush hog. It cuts a couple 100 acres of pasture land every year. That's all it does. It's not a production machine. It's not going to run 24/7. So that being said, we're not going to go, you know, above and beyond as if this was a, you know, like a working everyday kind of machine. So a few things we're not going to do. We're not going to replace a turbo. We're not going to send the head off to the cylinder head shop and have it gone through. This was a good running tractor before it went down. It wasn't like it was, you know, smoking and missing and carrying on. Pretty solid little machine. So we're going to go in there, put an in-frame kit in it, fix it, but we're not going to get carried away with, you know, every little thing. A lot of you guys know it doesn't take long. You know, pennies make dollars and dollars add up quick. You go to putting every hose, every clamp, you know, having the head going through. If you send the cylinder head off, what they're going to do is likely get in there and say, oh, well, your guides are worn, your seats are worn, it needs new seals, needs new springs. Maybe go ahead and stick you a set of valves in there, and you'll have a ton of money tied up very, very quickly. So we're just keeping it simple here. You know, for no more life than this tractor you're going to see, it'll be just fine. All right, we're back. It is a couple of days later, well, several weeks later actually. Been busy with everything. Got some parts ordered, finally got them here. Had to go order this liner puller kit. Come off of Vivor, pretty cheap, so we're gonna give it a shot. We've got one piston out of the hole, so we're gonna try to get that liner cinched up and go from there. There it goes. Oh, yeah. Oh. A little more coolant left in there. All right, so we can see here that little bit of grime we're seeing. Don't mind the broke pocket knife. It's a little bit of grime is actually like the top seal that's deteriorated. So fixing to get a seal pick and pull, I believe there's 3 O-rings in there, get them out of there. And I feel like they're gonna be pretty deteriorated as well. All right, we got them dug out of there. Well, the top one is just coming all to pieces. It's not actually coming out of there at all. It's just crumbling off. The second and third O-rings are just old and dry. A little bit of flexibility left, but well, you can see that one's cracked right there. And I bet if we bend it, a little flexible. But anyway, that one's just flat. I mean, I'm not so sure that's not the originals. And then the bottom one is just flat too. Flat and dry. Anyway, old liner seals. All right, we've got 2 more pistons popped up, but we've got to pull the oil pump and all this tubing out of the way. So it shouldn't be too much to it. But as you can see, we can get to 1, 2, 3 on the rods, and then the last 3 are just covered up, which I'm gonna need to get all this mess off to get to these mains anyway. We're gonna go ahead and swap out main bearings since we're in here. All right, it's all off there. To the untrained John Deere mechanic like myself, if you go to pull that oil pump off, you pull those 2 bolts out of the hole and you'll try to pull it down and it'll feel like there's something hanging it. That's not the case. It's just a set of gears that rides, or a gear that rides in the camshaft. Very similar to the way a distributor would. Let's see here, I'll show you guys. That's the gear on the end of it. Anyway, you just gotta kind of wiggle it. I ended up pulling the pump apart to see if there was like a nut on the end of the shaft. That wasn't the case. So if you're doing this, don't get discouraged. You just gotta wiggle it and tug and pull. But it finally will come out of there. All right, we've got all the rods unhooked and got the pistons popped up. So let's get some liners out of there. All right, time to clean everything up. I'll get that guy, and a couple of them, a whole bunch of them, possibly, and maybe one of those. Somewhere there's a wire wheel. Yeah, that'll work. All right, we've got everything cleaned up. The next step I want to do is come in here and let's roll these main bearings out and then put the new ones back in. Right now, we've got everything cleaned up top, so we've got all the dirt and stuff that's gonna fall is down here, so I need to clean the crankshaft up anyway. So we're at the point where we're fixing to start going back together. So now that crank will be really easy to move since the rods are out of there. And since we're fixing to clean it up, we can pull the caps down if we got any dirt hidden back there. We'll be able to clean it up. And I just think that's a good, I guess, a good order to do things. So, all right, we've got the #1 main cap off. The bearing, it looks like crap. Let's see if I can zoom y'all in here. There it goes. It's not terrible, but you can see right there where that first layer is just gone. Anyway, one thing to keep in mind on these main caps, the rod caps and the rods are numbered 1 through 6. The mains are not. They've got some casting marks, but that does not indicate which cap it is. It does have the tang for the bearing to sit in, so you know which way it goes as far as, 180 degrees in or out. But keep up with these things. If you're going to pull them off all at one time, I would suggest marking them, engraving them or stamping them, some type of way. Mark those jokers. If you get them mixed up, you'll eat bearings. Each cap is machined to that hole, so you do not want to mix those caps up. Actually, we're going to try something I saw on the TikTok. As you can see, that bearing is almost all the way around. I'm going to roll it a little more. That bearing's out of there. So I cheated a little bit, and what I did was I stuck a little screw in that oil hole. Oh, there it is. Little machine screw. They rotated on around, and every one of these main caps has got an oil galley in the crankshaft. So stick that little screw head in there. You want to make sure it's not too big, that it doesn't fit between the crank and the block. That one was pretty low profile, so stick it in there, rotate it around. I'd seen that, I've never done that. It actually worked really well. I'm probably going to keep doing that on these other 6 main caps. Well, I guess you can teach an old dog new tricks after all. Let's take a minute to look at some bearings. All these are 5 out of the 6 rod bearings, and this is going to be the top bearing, this is going to be the lower bearing in the cap. It's crazy how they are almost all identical in wear. We can see that the top bearing took all the wear. There's a little bit of that layer left, but like all these bearings, that first layer is gone. And these are about half worn through. I've only got the one main out so far, and it's kind of scratched up. I've been scratching it with my pocket knife trying to figure out what was wearing first. But anyway, that's the upper bearing, that's the lower bearing. And the same, we can see there's a little more wear on the bottom bearing. That's by nature. So as it goes, your crankshaft gets more wear on the bottom and your rods get more wear on the top because of the force of compression. Anyway, these things are not really chewed up as far as like dirt or contaminants running through them. They're just slap wore out. I mean, that layer, first few layers is just gone there. So we're going to stick a set of bearings in it. And this is likely, I don't know what it would look like if coolant had to run through it. I'm sure that the coolant running through the oil had a lot to do with this. But anyway, the crankshaft looks perfect in there, so we got lucky there. The bearings did their job, so we can stick some new ones in there now. All right, these old bearings were standard. The new bearings are ordered standard as well, but I wanted to check real quick just to make sure. And they measure the same. The mains are about 130 thousandths, and the rod bearings are measuring right at 100 thousandths on the new and the old. So just want to check and make sure we didn't stick the wrong bearings in there. All right, we got the first main rolled in there. The only thing to keep in mind is you've got that little lock up there for the bearing tang, I guess we'll call it. Anyway, make sure you get that guy lined up. The top bearing and the bottom bearing are different, and the tangs are in a different location, so you can't really screw that up. As you can see, this is the cap bearing. It's got that centered notch in it, and the upper bearing has an offset notch, so you literally can't put the wrong bearing in the wrong spot. All right, I am on the 5th main cap. For the 5th main bearing, I've got the little machine screw in the oil hole. I'm gonna roll it out of there. I'm gonna try to roll it out of there. There it goes. That is actually the thrust bearing too, so you'll see that ring coming around a little further. There it is. And then I'll roll it on around, and I'll pull the machine screw out of there. That works pretty good. All right, just for clarity, we're using an extension. We're gonna pull the extension off, check it without the extension, and just see how close we are. Oh yeah, same torque. So, extension makes no difference, but now we know. And the most important part, it still spins. So we're good. All right, I did the first one off camera because I wasn't real sure how it was gonna go. But I got the seals in there. Oh goodness, the comes with paperwork, tells you which way they go. And then it tells you to use a non-petroleum lubricant. So I mixed up a little Dawn and water. You know, it says tire wet. That is not tire wet. That is Dawn and water. Anyway, it slipped right in there. Took a dead blow the last little bit and kind of helped it. I mean, it didn't take much effort at all. And it slid in there. So I'm going to get you guys set up. And we're going to try to knock the other 5 in there. I've got to tap this down. I've already got the rod bearing stuck on the bottom of the rod and lubed up. So I've got to get that slid into place. I'm going to be a little tricky by myself, but I think I can get it. All right, so it looks like I can actually grab this rod and pull it somewhat into place. Yeah, it's very close. I'm going to spin the crankshaft now and try to just seat it, to be real careful. This will probably be the easiest one, I'm sure. It will get trickier as I move along, but we'll figure that out as we go. There it is. All right, so now I can stick my cap on there, and we're just gonna run those bolts up. We're probably gonna do the same that we did with our mains. We get them all run up and then come back and torque them all at one time, just to ensure that we don't skip any. All right, the only thing I did mention here is we've got to swap out the old rods and put in the new pistons. The pistons are in the cylinder packs, like in the sleeves. Rings are already compressed. I don't feel like trying to recompress those rings, so I'm just going to slide it up enough where I can get the wrist pin out. I've already got this thing lubed up. The piston indicates which way is forward. The rod has, you can see it has front cast into it. So we'll get it set in there, and then, hang tight, one-handed. We'll get the pin slid back in there. There's a clip there we'll put back in, and we will slide the rod and piston back in the hole, kind of like that. It gets new rod bolts. What I'll do is I'll stick that rod bearing in there, lube it up with white lithium grease, and then we can spray it down with our Dawn and water and slip it in the hole. All right, I've got the other 5 swapped over. I had a little mini heart attack. I thought they shorted me these liner seals, but some of these boxes were busted at the bottom, so I opened them from the bottom, and lo and behold, we hit them onto the very top. So, false alarm there. Thought I was fixing to run to the Deere to get some parts this evening, but anyway, we're still gonna be good to go so far. All right, I about got them all in there, but let me stop and show you guys how we're doing this. Got my seals already in the hole. I'm gonna take my soapy water, and I'm going to just spray around there real good. Yes, I'm getting the crankshaft wet, but I'll go back and wipe that off here in a minute. So we're going to thoroughly wet that, and we're going to very lightly come in here and wet the bottom of that liner. Oh, didn't mean to spray the rod. I'll wash it off too. And come in here, wipe that down. Kind of get it slicked over. Let me take and wipe that inside of that sleeve real quick. Dry that up. All right, I'm gonna set you guys up, and we're gonna set this sleeve over in the hole. Maybe it won't fall this time. All right, a little more in there. Make sure we got it facing the right direction. And I'm gonna set it in there. My dead blow. Just like that, it's in there. Now we're gonna take this hammer handle, and we're gonna tap it in a little ways. We know that the number 6 piston and the number 1 piston are on the same throw of the crank, so we don't want to go down quite that far because we don't want to hit the crankshaft with the rod, but we can bump down just a little bit to get us closer. That's probably pretty close. Then we'll go underneath it and we'll actually pull that rod to the crankshaft. Oh yeah, almost forgot. We've got to clean that crankshaft journal off real good with rag, dry up all that Dawn. No big deal, but don't forget to do that. All right, next we're gonna see if we can pull that rod on down to get it to seat on the crankshaft. There it is. All right, now I've got the cap land somewhere around here. There it is. I've got it greased up and ready to go. This is gonna be really tough one-handed. So let's see how it goes. It kind of will sit on the dowels once you get it in there. All right, so I've got that started very lightly. I'm gonna run this up. I'm not gonna get carried away. I just wanna seat it. Then we can spin the crankshaft to get this back bolt in a little easier. Sorry about this shake. Oh yeah, and spinning the crank is super easy on this thing. It's got this, the front drive for the pump. You put a little pipe wrench on it and then spin it. Almost effortlessly. Anyway, it'll get the job done. All right, we're gonna run that last bolt up. All right, just barely clack on it. All right, now we're gonna come back and torque all these to spec. All right, we are getting ready to torque the rod bolts. We're gonna do the ones that are slung low first. We got 1 and 6, and then we're gonna spin it. Probably do 2 and 4, and then get 3 and 4. I'm sorry, 2, 5, then spin it again 3 and 4. Anyway, we've got to torque this thing in 3 sequences. It goes 20 and then 55 foot-pounds. And then you come back and you turn it 90 degrees or a quarter turn. So let's get started. And maybe it'll stay. All right, so we got our 20 done already. We're gonna jump up and do our 55. I don't know what I said a while ago. All right, before we get the head cleaned up and stuck back on there, we've got 2 broken bolts that hold on the water manifold. We've got to try and get out of there. We got really lucky with that one. I hit it with some WD-40 and then took a hammer and smacked it a few times trying to free it up. And it's coming out of there. Oh, look at there. I hope I'll be as lucky on the other one. We'll see though. And that one's coming too. Well, I wouldn't have guessed it. I was getting ready to fire up the welder. I actually done drug out the welding helmet, so I knew I was fixing my welding to them, but I'll take it. Well, it doesn't always go that easy, but I'm sure glad it did today. Well, I tried to cover everything up real good while I was waiting on parts, but I missed one little spot. We got some dirt rollers that built the nest in this turbocharger. So I'm fixing to try to knock this housing off so we can get it cleaned up good and make sure we don't get any dirt inside the engine. And there it is. You can actually see the larva, if I can get it settled down here, crawling around in there. Anyway, I'm glad we went ahead and popped that cover off. So I don't think I'd have been able to dig all that out of there with a seal pick without actually getting that out of the way. Man, those dirt rollers, especially down here in the south, I don't know about the guys, the rest of you guys around the country, but these things are a real pain in the butt. They stop up all kind of stuff. All right, good as new. We've got the cylinder head all buffed up and cleaned up on the bottom. We're going to put the intake manifold back on it before we try to set the head, and then we'll be ready to put the head on, get it torqued back down. It is a shame that the prettiest parts of the engine always get covered up. So we're getting ready to set the cylinder head. I'm going to set you guys up so you can watch the whole process. So I looked several places trying to get the exact head torque for this thing, and there's a few different ideas on it, and I ended up going with Reliance has got a head torque spec and sequence they use, so I figured that was a pretty good one to go with. I've already got the initial torque done, but I'm gonna go back and retorque it. So I'm gonna set you guys up and show you the torque. And usually you start at the center and then work your way out. Well, this is like completely backwards of that, but it should work just fine. All right, so that torque was with engine oil on the bolt threads and on the bottom of the head of the bolt and the little washer that's under that. It's supposed to help reduce torque, get a better accurate torque on the bolts. It was like the spec was 180, so I stepped it up and did like 70 pounds, 110, and then the 180. And the spec tells you to do 180, and then come back 2 hours later and do it again. We're a little less than 2 hours, but we did come back and retorque it to 180. Everything seems good and solid. So now we're gonna stick the rocker arm assembly on, and we're gonna try to find top dead center first, so that when we put it on, we can go ahead and start adjusting the valves. All right, there might be a pointer down there on the crankshaft somewhere on the balancer, but here's how we're gonna find top dead center. We're gonna take the seal pick, we're gonna stick it in the number 1 cylinder hole, and we're gonna spin it until it gets all the way to the top. And that's the quick and easy way. Just got to be careful. You really want to have a hand holding this thing up straight. If you let it fall over, it has the potential to pinch or bend the seal pick and bind it up between the cylinder head and the piston. Ask me how I know. All right, I'm happy with that. One thing I do like about this John Deere is the shaft that runs to the hydraulic pump makes a great turn tool with a pipe wrench. And what I do is I'll spin it until this thing comes all the way up and then starts to go back down. Then I'll spin it back around to where it comes up, and you can kind of judge and find half medium. There's more precise ways to do it, but really for setting valves, this will get you just fine. I've done a ton of engines like this. Just use your judgment, get as close as you can to center. I mean, don't be sloppy with it, get it close, and it will work. All right, there you have it. We are done running overhead. You can notice every time I got one adjusted, I would come back and try to put a blue mark somewhere so that I could tell what I had done and hadn't done. That's just to help me remember and make sure I don't forget anything. And I kind of cheated, you can barely see, but I had it marked, had the exhaust and intake. And usually like your diesels, a lot of diesels, you got, cylinder here to be intake, exhaust. Well, this John Deere is opposite of that. Exhaust, intake, intake, exhaust, exhaust, intake, intake, exhaust, exhaust, intake, intake, exhaust. So I kind of made a little cheat sheet and I can barely see the I's and the E's on there. But that was to help me remember, because the intake sits a little bit tighter than the exhaust on the clearance. And you don't want to mix that up. So anyway, it is ran. I think now I'm going to try to install the water manifold that bolts back there before I put the valve cover on. And then we're going to put the valve cover in place. And then we'll be then we got to put injectors in this thing too. I want to get that done today. That's going to be a pain, but I made a socket for that, so hopefully that'll be a little easier. All right, so here's the deal with the injectors. As you put it in the hole and tighten this gland nut, this has got to line up with a return line. It's like a return rail that runs to all the injectors. So this injector needs not to spin. So what I did, and they make a tooling, I just didn't buy it, and I thought about it this morning, and I'm trying to get this thing finished up the next day or two. I don't have time to order tooling and wait, and nobody local has it. So it's like a 12.15/16. I took this socket and cut it. You've got a pretty tight window in the cylinder head anyway. So this is where the injector goes. You can only spin so far, so it ain't like you can get a big, super big turn on it anyway. But I can get it kind of close, get it kind of snugged. And then I found a bolt that will thread into there. Anyway, I can basically hold that bolt, line it up, and make my little bit of a turn, and then pull the bolt back out, you know, readjust, which, you know, imagine that coming off the nut. And then do it again until we get it tight. A little bit cumbersome, but I think that will work. This thing torques to like 60, 65 foot-pounds. So this needs to not break. I think there's enough meat there left to hold it. But anyway, that's what we're gonna do in lieu of not having the correct tooling today. So we're gonna run this thing up pretty close to hand tight or snug it. Oh. Get out of there. And then we gotta spin it. There's probably a wrench, but I got that handy. So I'll go straight up right there. Now I will put my socket back on there. Let's see, I want to get where turn pretty far left. That's not gonna work. All right, so now we can hold it. And I may have to set you guys down and do this, but I can put that bolt in there. I can put the ratchet back in there, and then yeah, I can hold it. Well, it's gonna take two hands. All right, looks fairly straight. Now we're gonna come back and try to actually get a torque on it. And get you guys in there. That is just a bottle jack handle I stuck on that bolt to kind of try to hold it a little better. Seems to be working all right. All right, so that's not really working. Just trying to bend that bolt. But what I was able to do is get it out here and torque it and see how far past center it went, and then back off of it and basically just orient it to where it's gonna, whenever it does reach torque, it's gonna be about centered. So I think that's what we wanna do. It's gonna take a little more time, but given the tools I have today, we can make that work. So the tool you buy online actually grabs the top of the stem there where it's flat instead of using that bolt hole. And I kind of didn't know if that would work or not, but it puts a lot more torque on that actual injector than I thought it would. Tighten it down, so there ain't a whole lot we can do about that, but we will make it work. All right, all the injectors are in there, and I believe they're oriented right. We won't know until we put the return manifold on there, but we'll see here shortly. Well, dirt dabbler strike again. I thought the fuel would kind of deter them. Apparently not. It's bad because that cap like everything off. I forgot that one little guy. All right, got it cleaned up, retaped. We're gonna try it again. All right, I skipped around a little bit, but I got the valve cover on, the water manifold on, got the blow-by tube hooked up. So getting pretty late today. We're gonna call it a day there. I did go ahead and prime the fuel system. Well, I say that. I pumped it up until I had fuel come out of my return line. So when I get the water pump hooked back up and the radiator shroud all situated, I'm gonna hook the return line back up, and then we will finish bleeding that. My plan tomorrow is to come here and wrap up everything up top. We've got like a hydraulic block to hook up there. All my air lines, turbo oil lines, that kind of stuff. And then we've got to tackle this oil pan. I've got to still put the oil pump back into place and a few tubes back up there. I've been putting that off because I don't want to wrestle it, but I've got to bite the bullet and just do it. All right, we're getting the oil pan cleaned up and getting ready to stuff back on there. The kit I bought come with the main gasket, but it didn't come with this back U gasket, so I had to hammer one out. Some gasket paper, use the old ball peen method, cut it close and take the hammer and just gently knock it around the edges. Cuts it out pretty well. We'll trim it up a little more and then we'll get that stuck in place. I was actually at Deere this morning picking up a few other O-rings and gaskets, and I forgot to order this thing. They didn't have it in stock today. I really want to get this pan up today, so we're going to do that. Should work just fine. We're going to probably throw a little RTV on it to stick it to the engine block, or actually stick it to the transmission case. That's like the back side of it is the transmission pan, and then we're definitely going to silicone or RTV up all these gaps where it meets. And then on the engine block, the same way on the front and rear, where like the front and rear main caps meet, we're going to RTV that up so it doesn't leak oil past the gasket. All right, I'm getting the oil cooler cleaned up and ready to put back on there. Ordered gaskets from John Deere. I got the one gasket goes between the cooler and the outside of the shell, but there's a spacer plate. I've got one gasket, but I need two, so it looks like we're fixing to make another gasket. Oh well, gotta get it done. Not terrible, not great, it'll work. All right, I have skipped some of the boring steps for you guys. I'm getting this little hydraulic block back on here, got the air filter housing back on, got all the water hoses hooked up. I'm glad that I took the extra time and put metal caps and plugs and all these lines, because we're not digging dirt overs out of these things. We're just hooking them up.
Was alive.
I didn't think it was going to take off that quick first. It was idle down.
I didn't think it till you got the thing looking at.
All right, I've run this thing for a few minutes, and so far I've only had one leak pop up, and that was this return fuel line that comes from the fuel injection rail, or fuel injector rail, back to the top of the tank. It's leaking right at the P-clamp, and that P-clamp actually broke the damn soldered stud off the tank there, so I was going to do something about that anyway, but it's leaking right around where that P-clamp was mounted. I imagine it's been rubbing it pretty thin, and that's, you know, pulling it on and off has just been just right. Anyway, gotta do something about that. That's what we can see the sheen on the side of the radiator. That's just fuel leaking down. I thought I had a hole in the radiator at first, but luckily it's just that line. So we can live with that. We ran it for a few minutes, kind of varying the RPM, doing a little break-in. Next, I'm supposed to go run this thing and load it up for so many minutes, so I'm probably gonna get it out of here after we get the leak fixed and top it off with coolant. Let the bush hog down and maybe go do some light bush hogging with it, put a small load on it. So far, the oil pressure is doing great. Everything sounds good. It's a little loud because the hood's off, but that's all right. So I left the hood off when we first fired this thing up for two reasons. One, I wanted to be able to check for any leaks, fuel leaks, coolant leaks, whatever it may be. There's always, you know, the chance something's going to pop, spring a leak. In this case, I'm glad we didn't have it on when that fuel leak popped up. And reason number two, I kind of want to hear this thing straight pipe. And it's got a good little sound to it. It really kind of spooked me at first when it first fired up and it tacked up pretty tough. I'm not used to these tractors. I wasn't familiar that it was going to run that high when you first fired up. So it scared me just a second, but calmed down pretty quickly. And it was actually idled all the way down. And when I first troubleshot this thing, I didn't even run it. It was just, it had so much water and oil. I did all my testing without even firing it up. So I had no idea what what we were looking for here. Let's see if I can do this one-handed. On that one. Yep, there it is. All right, it's the next day. Here's the plan for this leak. We're gonna cut this thing right where it's leaking. We got some 1/4-inch fuel hose. We're gonna slip over it in both directions. The idea is to cover this tank up completely with that fuel line, and dual purpose, we're gonna clamp that hose down so it's gonna stop the leak, and it's gonna kind of lay on that tank to where it doesn't rub metal on metal. I don't really have a good way to solder that post back to this. So hopefully that rubber lay in there will be just fine. It's Saturday. Didn't have a whole lot of options for trying to source a piece of tubing this morning. So this should work just fine for it. So it's probably worth stating this is the low pressure return. It literally dumps right in the top of the tank for an open fitting. There's no restriction on that guy. So that is probably the lowest pressure hose on the whole machine. We're gonna take a tubing cutter and cut it so that we don't get any more material into that line than we have to. And there we have it. Decent little patch. Should be just fine. All right, so it's the next day. Got the fuel leak fixed. We're fitting to fire it up for the first time today. And let's see if it's kept prime. All right, we kind of got some of the flopping hoses and harnesses zip tied in place. We are getting ready to set the hood on it, and then we're going to try to back this thing out and run it a little bit. We need to really load it up to break these rings in. And as usual, I feel like I'm forgetting something. I'm forgetting to put something in here before I put the hood on. I can't remember what it is. I've looked around, I don't see anything that I've forgotten, but I'm sure when I get the hood on, I remember it and probably have to pull the hood back off. But we're gonna play it by ear and see. Oh yeah, that's what it was. These darn clamps, I need to put those in place. I forget you little fellers. All right, that looks better. Got the side skirt on both sides, got the exhaust and the intake stack tightened up. Before I take off, I'm going to charge the AC or just top it off. It's a little bit low. I noticed it wasn't really cooling yesterday, and it's pretty low on the gauges. I feel like it's a 45-year-old system. It's going to have a leak or two. We'll address that one day. But right now, we want to get it running, go try it out. So we're going to top it off so we're not burning up. And it is, I don't know, early October here. It's not hot, but you definitely want a little bit of AC in that cab if we're going to be out in the sun. All right, it should be a whole lot quieter this time with that stack on there. Oh yeah. All right, ambient temperature outside is around 80 degrees today, so that's pretty good. Pretty good for us to leak back out here in a few hours, or I don't know, it may last another season. But I know when they fired this tractor up last year, I had to come top it off for them, and they used it, all they had to use it, and then here it is this year. And it's not completely empty, so it's not like a blown hose, but it's a very, very slow leak somewhere. Maybe tough to find anyway. All right, I need to check these tires, top them off before we take off. And the valve stem is in there on the inside. And there's a wasp nest right in there. And I have been putting off messing with these jokers because they haven't been messing with me. But I think the time has come. I got to get rid of them. Well, desperate times call for desperate measures. Oh, they're pissed. I just came over here to check the other side, and it looks good up there. But if you peek in there, they're everywhere. So far, so good. All right, I guess we can go bush hog with it. So quick little side note, if you guys, I get a lot of questions asking like what kind of stands I use, what kind of equipment I use. I'm literally using an iPhone for all my videoing. And if you see a video where I'm not holding the camera, chances are you're zip tied to a ladder or zip tied to a vise or something. I use a lot of just whatever I can get my hands on to hold the camera. I don't have a lot of money invested in any equipment yet. It seems to work. So, you know, why change something that works? I don't know. Oh, nearly. Put something on. We still got to put the belly pin under it. One last piece of the puzzle that needs to go back under there before I take off. All right, pin's on. Now we can go back to work. All right, we'll try again. Now we need to check the oil in the gearboxes before we get started. All right, first gearbox is good. I've already wiped this, but second box is good. And the third box is good. Gotta check that guy next. Don't know this gearbox exactly. I'm gonna go out on a limb and say, this is your drain port, this is your level port, and then we probably fill it to the vent. So we're gonna check it right here. Oh, yep. It's good. I don't know if y'all can see that, but it's got oil coming out of it. So it is plenty full. All right, I think we're ready to go see what she'll do. I expect this mount to get kind of shaky, so you probably won't be there very long, but let's get started. All right, we ran it for a few minutes. We're gonna stop, recheck fluids, check for any leaks. We made, I don't know, one big loop around here, and that's just a short break-in period. So far everything looks good. I don't see any new leaks. I see a little residual oil I need to still spray off, but so far so good. All right, so far so good. Now I'm one of the better mechanics that I know. I'm not bragging, but besides like my brother or somebody like Lee Russell, I'm pretty good. But I still get nervous when I first fire up one of these, you know, fresh engine builds or in frames or whatever it may be. I'm always wondering in the back of my mind, like, did I torque everything right? Did I you know, get everything like it's supposed to be? And so far this one's doing great. And I, you know, typically I get it right first time, but there's just always that, you know, voice in the back of my head, like, you listen to this, listen to that. And it seems like your senses are always heightened when you do something like this. Like you're listening for every single noise, every new tick or clatter is like, oh no, you know, what is that? But man, a 45-year-old tractor, there's plenty of noises to go around. But anyway, so far it's doing great. I hope it stays that way. All right, I'm fixing to go grab some lunch and give this thing a little bit of time to cool back off, and then we'll come back, run it through another heat cycle. And I don't think I'm loading it up quite heavy enough, so we're really gonna get after it this next time. Throw it up in a little higher gear, let it eat a little bit higher, and see if we can't get it broke in. Then we should be pretty close to cutting it loose and just letting it go to work. All right, coolant's still good, oil's still good. Let's try it again. Oh, I left the key on. Hope it cranks. I'm trying to run this thing a little harder to break it in to really load the engine up. We're hauling butt. I'm really going faster than I want to go, but I'm doing that so I can get a good heavy load on the engine and let it work. Seat those rings. It's a little bumpy in here. I will say this is a bad dude. I got it up in like B on the range, and I've been running second gear in B, which is, I don't know if you guys are familiar with the 4440, but that's hauling butt, and this thing just keeps pulling. It does not phase this thing. Your quality of cut, you know, kind of goes down because you're hauling so much butt, but like, it's still pulling it with no problem. All right, we've probably got over an hour runtime on it now. It's starting to rise in temperature just a hair. We just coated over on the guards there. We're gonna park it today. It's getting mid-afternoon. I've got some chores around the house to get knocked out myself. It's running really good. I am well pleased with this thing. I don't see, we had one little leak pop up, a coolant leak on, yeah, I think it's a heater core line. It's a coolant line, but I think it goes back to heater core. On a clamp we didn't even touch back there, but that's all part of it, so no big deal. I'm going to break out the air on this thing, blow everything off real good, put it up so when they come, or whoever comes to get on it next, it'll be ready to go. I got to see a fat boy run today. All right, she's back in the house. We're gonna call it a day there. We had a long drive back to the house, so better get going. All right, so I want to get into cost real quick before we end this thing. So we ordered an in-frame kit from Abilene Equipment. Kind of searched around. They were pretty competitive on prices, and I liked what all the kit had to offer. I think, if I remember right, I had to go back and look, but that kit was in the ballpark of $1,100, somewhere in there. And it had most everything we needed. The only thing we ran into was like on our oil pump, all your gaskets for your oil pump, all the O-rings for like semi-pressure tubes. Didn't have everything with it. And I may have missed some of it. Anyway, had to go to John Deere and buy a few gaskets. We bought a few gaskets for the oil cooler too because we had pulled that off reselling it. And I think overall we had like $80 tied up at John Deere and gaskets and O-rings, which isn't terrible at all. We ordered we got concentrated coolant. The thing holds about 9 gallons. So we had, I think, about $50 in coolant. We changed oil in it, so it was right at 5 gallons of Dello. And a filter. Dello's $20-something a jug now, so do the math, another $100 there. I feel like I'm forgetting something. Oh, the small things, hose clamps, you know, little 1/4 inch hose. So really, all in parts, I would be willing to bet we're less than, or in the ballpark of 1,500. I could be wrong about that. I have to go back and put, you know, exact pen to paper, but just roughly shooting from the hip, that's where we're going to be at. Labor is a little different story. I had a lot of time tied up in this deal. It's a family deal, you know. I'm not going to say my labor rates on here because they do depend. You know, in town, out of town, weekends. There's too many variables for me to go on here posting labor rates, and you know, some customer getting mad because I charge them something different. You know, a lot of you guys will understand that. But I would like to know what this would have costed. You know, it went to a shop and the shop done this. And what me and my wife were talking about a while ago is a lot of shops, a lot of people have gotten to the point where they won't tackle jobs like this. They won't touch an engine unless they completely, you know, go above and beyond and build it. And the reason being is they've got to stand behind it and warranty it. You know, if I was building this engine for a customer and I didn't send the cylinder head off like we did, you know, we didn't send it off. And then 2 weeks later, dropped a valve. In a normal situation, I might be inclined to have to warranty that. This is a family deal. They're probably going to get a heck of a break on the labor anyway. I might trade it for some hunting rights over there. But anyway, neither here nor there. So, you know, this isn't a typical job. A lot of shops just, they won't even, you know, when you call it patching the engine, they won't do it. You know, it's, hey, let them do a full rebuild or nothing. That's just the way it is. Coming from a cat dealership background, that was big time how they were. They didn't want to take any unnecessary risk. And I get that. All right, I'm going to end it there, guys. As always, I really appreciate everybody tuning in, especially if y'all hung around this far. I know that was a long-winded video. And all you John Deere guys, take it easy on me in the comments. I know somebody's probably going to roast me about doing this or doing that wrong, yada, yada. Hey, the thing runs. That's all that matters. Anyway, I appreciate y'all guys. Y'all have a good one.